Hello? Hello? Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, the session is about to start, and I kindly ask you to take your seat. Please take a seat. I'm Donatella Ponziani. I would like to thank you all for being here with us today. And I leave the floor now to our Director General, who couldn't make it, but he has a recorded message for you all before starting the day. Welcome.
Dear participants, dear colleagues, dear friends, I wish you a very warm welcome to the ESA Commercialization Days Space Forum for Green Energy. I'm sorry that I'm unable to join you in person, but it is my great pleasure to be able to say a few words via this video message. Innovation is vital to ensure a sustainable, continuous and affordable energy supply. This event serves as a platform to demonstrate how space can play a pivotal role in supporting the green energy industry in two crucial areas: energy sustainability and energy resilience. Space-based technologies can help to optimize renewable energy sources, from enhancing energy generation to improving forecasts, for example, enabling companies to anticipate the output of solar or wind power. Moreover, as the climate continues to change, space becomes vital to monitor weather events that could threaten the energy supply, enabling companies to act to reduce the risk, as well as providing crucial communication services in areas affected by natural disasters. Space-based technologies can secure sustainable and accessible energy for everyone, but our successes in this endeavor relies on collaboration. By listening to the needs of green energy stakeholders, we can together develop commercial space-based solutions that truly make a difference. Today, you will hear how ESA supports and promotes innovative green energy developments using space applications and data. You will learn how to collaborate with us and access the technical assistance and funding needed to turn ideas into reality. This event isn't just about discussions. It is about forging lasting and large-scale partnerships and driving tangible progress towards a greener future, turning innovative ideas into operational services using space-based applications and services. So, we come together over the next 2 days. Let's not only explore the latest trends and innovations, but also seize the opportunity to collaborate and create meaningful change. Together, let's harness the power of space to enable a brighter future for generations to come. Thank you for being here, for being part of this journey towards a greener tomorrow, and I wish you a very successful event.
Take a few minutes to let you introduce yourself among different tables. This is, among others, a networking event where we would really like to announce the connection between space and non-space sectors. So for a few minutes, please take time to introduce yourself, who you are, what you are doing, and what is the objective of being here. In the meantime, we are waiting for our director, Geraldine Najat, who will come to give an introductory speech for us. So we go back to work. Our director, Geraldine Naja, is with us, and I would like to introduce her. The icebreaker is well appreciated, I see. Hello. I introduce to you Geraldine Naja, Director of Commercialization, Industry and Competitiveness.
Thank you, Donatella. And yes, hello everyone. I see there was a good networking, so I should have arrived even later. I was told 2:15, but I see that there are lots of discussions and a heavy audience attendance, which I'm very happy for. So I'm very happy to welcome you to today's commercialization days on space and green energy. And I would just like to say a few words about ESA, what we do for commercialization, and in particular, a few things about green energy. So first of all, ESA, many of you know already, so I won't dwell on it. Intergovernmental organization, 22 member states, soon 23. But a very, let's say, defining feature of ESA is that we are active in all sectors of space. Contrary, for instance, to the well-known NASA, we are active in applications, Earth observation, navigations, telecoms, connectivity, etc., in science, in exploration, in launches, of course, in technology, in human spaceflight. So we have and operations, of course. So we have a very broad, let's say, area where we are active with, of course, many stakeholders as well, many different stakeholders, and that is a defining feature. I would say the other defining feature of ESA is probably its industrial policy. We have an active industrial policy, not only geared towards geo-return, as many think, but I would rather say geared to supporting European industry competitiveness. And this is especially important when we are talking about commercialization, that it is in our convention that we have to support the worldwide competitiveness of European industry. But indeed, if we look at where we are now, ESA was created some 50 years ago, in 75, so next year 50 years. And in the last 50 years, the world has changed. And by the way, I am quite sure if we were to write the convention of ESA today, there would be the word business or commerce or commercialization. And yes, we are now in a world where there is a so-called new space, which is more an approach, but still which comes with a different way of developing programs, of managing programs, a different culture, a different risk acceptance, and also different investment, because when ESA was created in the 70s and even before, space was a public thing. It was a story between states, a competition among states, and publicly funded. Now we are in a situation where we have actually probably one of the largest actors in space today, which is not a state or an agency, a public space agency, and we do have private investment. Nevertheless, for the time being, space remains publicly funded in majority. But in 23, as you can see, private investment for space amounted to some 7.5 billion euro, which is not in a growing trend. Private investment in space is decreasing much faster in the US than in Europe, but still it's decreasing. In Europe, private investment has continued to grow and is now slightly, let's say, stabilized. A more important feature is that if we look at the number of launches and number of satellites launched, there we see that some 90% of the satellites which have been launched in 23 were actually commercially operated satellites. And this is, of course, a huge difference with respect to the last decades. And another important feature is that the commercial downstream revenue is growing steadily. Last year it was at some 350 billion euro, and this indeed is growing. And of course, new challenges for the European Space Agency, for all space agencies, but also opportunities to have more innovation, more competitiveness of industry, to learn to work faster and more cost-effective, in a more cost-effective way. So I, for one, see more opportunities than challenges in this evolution. And what we are working on, especially at ESA, can be summed up in 3 words: speed, capital, talent. Speed, because we have to work differently. We have to be more agile, more responsive, more reactive, and therefore more innovative too. Capital, because we need to bring a similar access to private investment as our US or other competitors benefit from. So we are working on that. We have now a network of investors which counts some 43 partners, so very successful, and which represents almost 0.5% of the deal, almost half, not 0.5%, almost half of the deals that were done in Europe last year. Talent might be the most important part, because in the end, our space agency, our industry also, is composed of people. And the more brains we can invest on, the more talent we can get and attract, that will be the key factors of our success and our competitiveness. And I was at the MIT on Friday last week. No, the Friday before last, 10 days ago. It was the so-called New Space Age Conference. And there you see PhDs, researchers, postdocs from all continents at MIT. And I talked to a few European ones. Thankfully, most of them wish to come back to Europe. But we must make sure that not only can we get them back, but we can also attract non-European PhDs, researchers, etc., in Europe as well. And I think this is key for a successful space sector in Europe. And at ESA, we do work in this direction of new commercial programs, new commercial initiatives. So let me start by saying ESA is primarily, first and foremost, an R&D agency. This is our DNA, and this is what we have been created to do. Nevertheless, we are an R&D agency which must support its industry, which must be cost-effective, which must encourage and work using competition. So it means that, yes, it is in fact for us very important to pay tribute and to pay attention to the new commercial world in space, because this can help us be an even better agency, have an industry which is even more competitive and successful. And in all of our program lines, in all the sectors of space in which we work, be it launchers, be it Earth observation, navigation, telecoms, exploration, I'm sure I forget many, each of these program lines has a dedicated element for commercialization or for business development. And this is fine. But let's say that since 3 years now, our Director General has also created a transversal, let's say, layer in addition to these program-specific lines, which are vertical. And the transversal layer is people from my directorate. It's called a directorate called Commercialization, Industry and Competitiveness, so it is clearly announced. And this transversal layer has 2 goals. It is to bring some coherence to the vertical elements, which have to remain where they are, because they are very well next to the directorate taking care of their sector, but it needs to be done in a harmonized and coherent way. And second, we also provide new services, as well as services building on existing infrastructure, in particular downstream applications, building on our existing infrastructure. That's the BAS program. And we have the Scale-Up program, which is providing commercialization services to develop and grow new entities. At the last ministerial meeting, you know that at ESA we work with, every 3 years, we have the meeting of the ministers, of European ministers in charge of space, where they decide together on new program lines, etc. The last one was in November 22. Next one will be in November 25. And at the last one, commercialization in total gathered 1.3 billion, so for the next 3 years, including the vertical elements and including the transversal layer. And we certainly hope that in 25 this figure should increase substantially. But now let's come to what brings you here today. It's the green future. In Agenda 25, our Director General has made it a key priority for ESA in general and for his mandate, which now has been extended. And in any case, I believe it is now a key priority for any space agency because, as you know, space is absolutely irreplaceable to address the green transition. More than half of the key climate indicators can only be measured from space. So we cannot do without space for having a successful green transition and a green future. And indeed, we have many tools already at ESA to address the green future. We have, of course, and this is in the middle, the Copernicus system. All the Copernicus satellites, which are measuring all the components of our planet, the atmosphere, the immersed lands, the sea, the ice, etc., and understanding how these elements interact with one another and understanding how they will evolve, thus understanding how climate is evolving. This is the main building block for us. But around Copernicus and around also the weather forecast satellites, which are equally important to understanding the climate, we have many program lines or, let's say, program proposals. We have an accelerator, Space for a Green Future. We have what we call the Green Transition Information Factory, let's say, putting together the data required to understand the green transition and to support it. We have the BAS program, which I mentioned already, Business Applications and Space Solutions, with a very large part of this program, more than half dedicated to the green transition. And the Green Agenda, which is a bit the policy part of all that, where ESA is working on supporting the green transition, but also on being green itself, if I may, and working on the internal operations of ESA to ensure that ourselves, we can be models in terms of green transition. And many commercialization programs, but as I said, the BAS program is providing this, let's say, this transversal work where we are aiming at developing new downstream businesses and new services supporting the green transition. And I will go right next here. What kind of support do we offer? This support can be summarized in 3 words. Sustainability. We support the social and economic sustainability of the business. Space use, of course. We are a space agency, and we promote the way space can be used for new markets and for new user communities in the green transition. And finally, as you know, a key objective of ESA overall, competitiveness, supporting and strengthening the competitiveness, both on space, but also on non-space markets. And as I just mentioned, this program, BAS, Business Applications and Space Solutions, has already a strong focus on the green transition, and we'll come to green energy. Since 15 years almost, since 14 years now, we have invested some 183 million euros in 300 BAS activities dedicated to the green transition. And you can see in the pie chart which are the main components. So a major component is about protecting ecosystems. This is the highest one. And then comes sustainable farm to fork, so space for agriculture. But you will see that, let's say, the clean water also is an important factor. But then there is energy transition, which represents almost 20% of this investment, 34 million invested since 2010, on energy transition. And I believe that this portfolio of activities represents a rather balanced portfolio when it comes to addressing the green transition. Now, looking a bit closer at what these 34 million euros invested in space for energy transition, for the green energy, what have they been used for? It is clear that however you look at the energy sector and the energy transition, you see that there are key areas where space can help. How? First of all, obviously, the renewable energies, such as wind or solar. These are sectors which are heavily dependent on space, on the weather forecasting. And the weather forecasting is now done using space means, because this is the only way to, let's say, forecast the output of renewable energies means. So this is a first domain where it's very important. Second domain, where will we deploy the infrastructure for renewable energies, is also something where Earth observation will support us to install the wind and the solar farms. Also, grid management, energy grid management is requiring many space means, obviously SATCOMs, but also navigation. Earth observation, navigation, communications are very useful tools, key tools for monitoring disasters, natural hazards, which can impact or even destroy some of the infrastructure. So this is equally important. And last but not least, what is the environmental impact of the installations is also measured through Earth observation satellites. So you see, all the, let's say, all the different applications of space are useful, very useful actually, for the green energy management and foreseeing. In addition to the BAS program I mentioned earlier, we also provide what we call commercialization services, especially for growing and developing new startups or new commercial entities or new industrial entities. And for that, we have on the one hand our business incubation centers and PhilLabs, I will come to that, as well as the technology brokers, which are free networks of small centers or services. We work more generally on the patenting and the intellectual property protection. This is essential for the startups. We have also a network of investors, which I mentioned already. And then we have, let's say, business intelligence, and we are also a hub of knowledge on the space economy. So we do both market intelligence studies, but also economic impact assessments. We have a marketplace and a new space help desk. Business incubation centers, in one figure, it's 29 centers across Europe in 29 states. And if you look at the socio-economic impact just for 22, you see some 180 million euro of revenue, creation of full-time jobs, patents. So this is really an innovation hub. For me, these business incubation centers are a place for innovation in space, in non-space. And my goal with this network is to really extract the hopefully future unicorns of tomorrow, but also to see how these startups can be helpful to our programs and to the green transition. PhilLabs is a different type of network. These are small centers where we gather academia, industry, and research centers. And there it is really, the idea is to bring together the technical and scientific expertise of academia and researchers and the commercial expertise of industry, and to go to a very open type of innovation and see how the, let's say, the scientific research can be translated eventually into applications or solutions. The original PhilLab was created at our Esrin Center close to Rome, dedicated to Earth observation, and we are now creating a network of phi labs. We have the goal to open some 11 phi labs, and we already have placed the first contracts for the phi labs, which will open very soon. So this network is probably going to have, I hope, a success equivalent to the BICS. It may even at one point be useful to bring together BICS and phi labs. Technology transfer, I mentioned it also. Just two examples. For instance, we have an adaptive heat exchanger, which was developed and transferred for industry. It's very interesting because it can be adapted to the, let's say, outcome desired. Also, a deployable structure for portable energy generators for solar cells, panels, is also a type of technology transfer from the space technology. And I will finish with that. Please make sure, if you look for information about our activities, we have 3 major points. Of course, you have our commercialization gateway, which will tell you all about what we do for the new space world. We have ESA Star, which is where you will see our invitations to tender and call for proposals. So if you want to participate and have access to ESA contracts, this is the place. And finally, we have an open platform, open space innovation platform, where you can just come with ideas. This is where we collect ideas for current and future program. Not forgetting the SME office, which you will find on our website. So I hope that you will find all the information that you may look for. I wish you a very successful day, and I thank you for having given me the chance to open these commercialization days. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Geraldine. And now is the time for the second speaker of the day. I would like to introduce Brendan Reindbach, who is policy analyst at IEA, and he is going to explain us what are the energy sector's needs and challenges around sustainability. Welcome.
Thank you. So, good afternoon. My name is Brendan Reidenbach. I'm a policy analyst at the International Energy Agency. We're neighbours. We're just over under the footprint of the Eiffel Tower. So our mandate at the agency is to provide data and policy advice for our governments so that they can better manage the energy trilemma. That is the balance, the security of the supply of energy with the affordability of energy and the sustainability. In this address today, I'll provide some scene setting and present some levers that we have available to us now in the short term, and also lay out some of the challenges that exist. So I think we've got to go back a little bit first, and then we look at the arc and we'll figure it out as we move along. We start back thinking about the Industrial Revolution, where we started a pattern of urbanization, and this has shaped countries and societies as people flocked from the rural areas to the cities in search of prosperity. And this reorganization is still happening, as you can see. Even from 1950 up to where we are today, the share of urban population as a total of the globe has moved from around 30% to more than half of the planet right now. And in just over 2 decades, we could see that increase even further to around 70%. And at the same time as we're seeing this shifting population of increasing urbanization, we're also seeing increasing populations globally. By the middle of the century, there will be up to 2 billion more people living in cities than there are today. And the vast majority of this is happening in Asia and Africa, where around 90% of the population growth in the last decade has occurred. And this upward trend of urbanization, coupled together with the population growth, will now see these shifting population sizes, and this will lead to increasing sizes of the cities. So collectively, by the middle of the century, all of the change of the footprint from urban sprawl collectively will make up for around 1 million square kilometres. And much of this is already happening in Asia, but we're also seeing increased population growth now and fast urbanisation in Africa, which is the fastest urbanising geography at the moment. And to put into context of what 1 million square kilometres looks like, that's the size of Germany, Japan, and Italy combined. So if we look at cities then and how they fit into all of this, cities, they're still the beating heart of economies globally, and they make up for around 80% of GDP globally. But however, much of the advancements that we've seen in cities and elsewhere since the Industrial Revolution has been based on fossil fuels as a source of energy. And this, as we all know, has had planetary consequences. Increased greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere due to anthropogenic activities have caused global temperatures to increase, and that's forecast to continue. 2023 was the hottest year on record, and I think many of you know with the news that was out just a few weeks ago. March has signalled to be the 10th consecutive month in a row, which has led to a new record for the hottest period. So at the International Energy Agency, when we look at how things could change in the future, we create different scenarios and we model on that basis. So when we look at the graph here on the left-hand side, we can see that in 2021, we produced a report called the Net Zero Roadmap. And with this, the executive director came to us and said, we've been talking about net zero transitions, but what does that look like? And is it actually physically possible? So all of our analysts and modelers went away, crunched the numbers and came up with a pathway. So, and this is the net zero emissions scenario. And this isn't the roadmap to achieve, it's a roadmap. It depends on the geographies and the different energy systems. So with this, we modeled the decarbonisation curve that is necessary to achieve net zero by the middle of the century. And the second scenario that we have is the announced pledges scenario. So with this, we look at all the pledges that governments have made, say COP, and so on and so forth. And we take them at their words, and if they implement all those changes and policies necessary, this is a trajectory that we would be going at. However, the last scenario that we're looking at here is called the stated policy scenario. So this takes into consideration not just what governments are saying, but it's actually what they're doing at the policy level and what they're implementing. So when we look at the gulf between what governments are actually saying and where we need to go, I think we can see that we do need to move much faster if we're trying to achieve that trajectory to get us down to 1.5 degrees. So looking at the energy sector then itself, it's responsible for around 3/4 of total greenhouse gas emissions each year. And the main lever that governments have is to drive down greenhouse gas emissions by reducing the consumption of coal, oil, and natural gas. So back in 2021, when we first released the Net Zero Roadmap, what the media took to is there was an announcement in the report that said that based on our analysis, we've looked at all of the existed resources of fossil fuels that have been exploited through oil and gas fields. And the analysis has said that if we want to achieve this net zero decarbonisation pathway, then we don't need to explore any new oil and gas fields. And that ran on every piece of front page of a newspaper around the world. But what they weren't missing was that big caveat right down at the end, is that we need to massively increase the supply of clean energy. And that is through renewables like solar, wind and hydropower, but also nuclear energy wherever suitable. So when we dig deeper within the net zero scenario, we've looked at within those different subsectors of the energy sectors, what do we need to do? And the outcome that we've looked at is when we look at renewables and where we are right now, as an interim basis up through the end of this decade of 2030, we need to triple the amount of renewable energy capacity globally. When we look at the energy intensity improvement, and that's it's a metric to measure energy efficiency gains, which we look at the total amount of primary energy that every country uses each year and its total GDP output. And we can see that as the years go on, we're getting more and more economic growth for less and less inputs of fossil fuels. And that's how we determine the energy efficiency gains. So we've looked at the historic energy efficiency gains, and through to the end of the decade, again, we know that we need to double that in every country. And also then thirdly, in the short term, we need to vastly reduce down methane emissions, down by 3/4 from where we are right now. And some of this might sound familiar, because back last year at COP28, the outcome of the negotiations was that in addition to finally making reference of the need to transition away from fossil fuels and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in line with the science, was that governments pledged to recognise the need by 2030 to triple renewable energy capacity, double the rate of energy efficiency, and then reduce down methane emissions. Now, the language didn't quite go as far as we would have liked to, but at least it's a start. So let's start with the almost good news. When we look at the trajectory of renewables, our recent report has said that in last year, the analysis suggests that globally renewable energy additions increased by around 50%. So that's we've doubled the amount of renewables in 1 year. And that's the fastest growth rate in the last 2 decades. Most of that is coming from solar, which makes up for around 3/4 of all renewables each year. And this also is another record year, because this makes up for the 22nd year in a row that has created a new record for increased renewable additions. And the distribution itself is quite global, but it's moving much more in one direction. Is that we know there's been a lot of renewable capacity additions in Europe, the United States and Brazil, who all made new records. China, their acceleration was extraordinary. In 2023, China commissioned as much solar PV than the rest of the world combined. So it's clear that they are moving at quite an accelerated pace. So, but why did I say it's almost good news? Is that our analysis suggests that even though we are on an upward trajectory and there is good capacity being added, but based on the existing policies and the market conditions, our analysis suggests that by the end of the decade, we're actually going to only achieve 2.5 times where we need to go. So we've just fallen short, but it is certainly in the right direction. But when we come to energy efficiency progress, it's much less consistent. The current target of 4% is where we need to go. The number isn't that important for you in the room, but it's the trajectory and the consistency that is the issue. Is that over the last decade, nearly every country has achieved a 4% energy efficiency improvement at least 1 year. Some have done it twice, some 3 times 4, some 5. But what we do need to see is that every country effectively needs to do this consistently and together. And going back as far as the start of this century, not on a single year have we achieved that when we look at all the countries aggregated together. So leaving the technology there for where we are right now, we know that looking towards the middle of the century, that our analysis has said that we already have got quite a lot of maturity. We can see the solar and wind power is moving quite quickly. But there is still much more that we need to do, particularly with the harder to decarbonize sectors. And our analysis suggests that still 35% of the emissions that we need to reduce in order to achieve net zero is from technologies that is not yet scaled or available at commercial scale. And from that then we look at the next section, which is methane emissions. There's quite a lot of you in the room who know quite a lot more about the technology side of it, but I can give you some of the scales. So we know that the energy sector, including the oil, gas, coal, is responsible for around 1/3 of all of the methane emissions. This is a very, very powerful greenhouse gas, around 30 times more powerful than CO2. And reducing this down is key in order to achieve that 1.5 degree limiting of the temperature. Our recent report in the IEA's methane tracker has estimated that last year, globally, there was the fossil fuel industry accounted for around 120 million tons of methane emissions. Now, to put that into context, if we consider that each ton of methane is around 30 tons of CO2, that makes up for around 3,600 million tons of CO2 emissions. And again, that's another big number. Let's put that into scale. That's roughly equivalent to all of the greenhouse gas emissions from every EU 27 country member combined. It is a huge number, and I don't think it's quite getting the traction that we quite need. So there's been little progress to date in curbing methane emissions. However, substantial policies and regulations have been announced in recent months, which could potentially see us at a tipping point to try and finally start reducing down these emissions. Additionally, there was the indications in COP that there was a view that it was necessary now to start reducing methane emissions. So if we do think that this is going to come down, then we could be on a good trajectory. And if our analysis suggests that if we consider all of these pledges and policies together, we could see the methane emissions coming down at around 50% of where we are, or where we need to go. That still leaves 25%, but it at least puts us in the right trajectory. So coming full loop from where we started again, so following the initial mechanization of the Industrial Revolution through the advancements of mass production, the age of computers and automation, we arrive now where we are today at the beginning of the fourth Industrial Revolution, which is the potential for the digital transformation in front of us. So in addition to the innovation of new advanced technologies that we need, there's also an urgent need for reliable data of high granularity and as close to real time as possible, which is what we need to better monitor the progress against these climate ambitions for our member governments. It's with that old adage of what we can't measure, we can't manage. And looking at how we monitor this, the United Nations Frameworks Convention on Climate Change and the International Energy Agency both recently announced that they will be joining forces to try and drive the progress on examining the energy commitments of our governments, and those made at COP28 in order to improve the energy data that's available and to try to enhance the effectiveness of these energy and climate making decisions. And they're doing so by tracking and reporting the energy-related outcomes of COP28. So we're going to look and measure the progress of countries against the doubling messaging and the tripling message. And we're also going to try and start managing against other targets. It'll help then building consensus on the actions that we need to deliver that 1.5 degree commitment. And also, by using this information, we hope that we can better support countries as they go to revise their nationally determined contributions going into the next submission. So effectively, now more than ever, we know that there is an increased need for visibility of all of these physical processes on Earth, as we've talked about just earlier on, about forecasting the weather, about trying to identify new locations for solar or for wind farms, looking at all of these disaggregated pieces of data together will increase the ability to have a more holistic view of the entire energy system. Monitoring how cities are growing and increasing, where we're seeing new settlements occurring on Earth, and also looking for those sources of methane emissions in almost real time. And this will help increase the amount of information that we have, so we've got better predictability of our energy systems going forward as they become much more dynamic, and we need increased resilience. So with that, I'll draw to a close. So while myself and my colleagues just over the road spend most of our time on terra firma, looking at the energy systems so we can support our governments to make the decisions that they make, so we can inform them so they can improve their policies, looking again back to that trilemma of energy security, of energy affordability, and energy sustainability. I look forward to the continued discussions here and hearing how the space industry might be able to get some of that technology transfer to come across or increase the amount of data for us. So with that, I'll finish here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brandon. And now it's time for Rita Rinaldo, who is head of Application Project and Studies Division at ESA, and she's going to give the space perspective with respect to helping energy sector.
Thank you. Thank you, Donatella. And indeed, after having heard from Brandon what are the challenges that are multiple and diverse that the energy sector is facing, I will try to give an overview that, of course, will not be exhaustive because there are many ideas, but I will try to provide you with some ideas that have been implemented by companies and have become projects and actually real services that have supported the transformation of the energy sector. No? Sorry. All right. So basically, summarizing what I have understood and taken from Brandon, there are I can try to landscape three main challenges. So we heard about the need of increasing substantially renewable adoptions. There is also the need to drive down energy intensity, so increase in energy efficiency and accelerate the decarbonization. And the third one in relation to curbing methane emissions. And we believe that space actually has a very important role to play in each of these 3 points, and actually can be an enabling of solutions, of space solutions addressing the three challenges to achieve the sustainability targets. Starting from the first one, that is about renewable adoptions. First of all, I would like to point out that in addition of being, let's say, a target for our society overall, the green transition in the energy sector, as well as in the other sector, is first of all also an economic opportunity. So it offers the opportunity to companies that both the ones achieving a first mover advantage, but also the ones that have a solid business case to capture part of the value that of the economic value that is made available by this opportunity. For example, if we look at green energy technology, studies show that this moment the investment of this by the public and private sector is very high and is expected to grow further, achieving 2 trillion by 2030. So this is clearly a very concrete and solid opportunities and can be articulated in different sectors, from the energy generation to the energy storage, processing, to the operation, maintenance, and finally to the decommission and circularity. In particular, with respect to renewables, there are two areas where clearly we have seen a lot of proposals, a lot of good ideas coming in using space in conjunction with digital technology. The first one is about energy generation. So we have heard that still there is a lot of reliance on fossil fuels to generate energy, and this is of course a strong contributor to greenhouse gases emissions. There is, however, an alternative, which is to use small-scale renewable sources as an alternative to large-scale generation. And this is something that can be supported through utilization of space, and I will come back to this. The second area is operation, maintenance, and planning. And here the challenge is, as we know, that the predictability of the utilization of renewable energy such as solar and wind is quite limited, and this generates an excess in or a scarcity in the supply. So the opportunity is to use space data together with other data to ease the absorption of this, the predictability and the absorption of this type of energy sources into electricity grids that need to be modernized and made smarter. A few examples that relate to projects that have been developed in the context of the Business Application and Space Solution Program of ESA, where space, either space data or Internet of Things data relayed through satellite connectivity or geopositioning technology, have been used to support this uptake of renewables. This is one project called MESPAC, and it's about developing an online platform to facilitate the planning and the deployment of wind farm sites at sea. So it's specifically targeted to ocean and maritime energy application, and uses satellite Earth observation data together with meteorological data. And of course, this data need always to be processed in a smart way with machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms. Another example, now moving from marine to solar, is the project SEED that delivers accurate solar production forecasting through the utilization of EO data. And actually, during the pilot of these projects that took place in 4 sites in India, it was demonstrated a substantial cut of the cost of solar energy generation thanks to the utilization of this technology. So I think something to be stressed here is that these projects are not just the development of a solution or of an idea, but it really, companies through these projects have been able to test and pilot the solution together with the prospective customers and user community, therefore facilitating their adoption. The third project is about microgrids. So we talked before about the need of boosting small-scale energy generation and allowing its utilization inside grids. This project was one, VIDA, Village Data Analytics, is one of the several successful projects that have addressed the problem of supporting the generation of energy through small plants and microgrids, and their integration and providing electrification to communities, even when where the grid is not present. Like, for example, this project was deployed in Africa. So actually, after the first deployment, it was scaled to 20 sub-Saharan countries, and this was helping a lot also the business case and the further growth of the company, as you can see. Now, moving to the second challenge, that is about decarbonization. Again, starting from the market opportunity, I would like to mention one, let's say there are of course many studies, but I think one figure that is really striking is that if we move from our current pathway in favor of a lower carbon pathway, there will be 26, it is estimated that this will bring $26 trillion in economic benefit. That is actually a huge figure that gives a dimension of the benefits that there is to gain from moving and transiting to a lower carbon society. And particularly the energy sector has a key role to play in this. In fact, smart connected grids are identified as the largest multiplier. So of all ICT solution and digital solution that we could think of to achieve a decarbonization in the different energy sectors, so from transport to other type of industry, the energy one is the one that is estimated to have a stronger cascade effect, a multiplier effect. So just to mention how important this sector is. The energy sector itself, at the same time, is one of the main emitters of greenhouse gases, accounting for approximately 1/3 of anthropogenic greenhouse gases emission. And this is why they introducing innovation in a way that is sustainable, so both from the point of view of environment, but for sure also economically sustainable, so that this solution can achieve adoption at scale, is essential. And there are several potential innovative solutions that can be introduced. And again, to mention just a few, for example, the mapping and monitoring of pollution and heat efficiency that can benefit a lot by the use of space data. A different way of producing heat. And the third one, moving to more sustainable and different type of transport using alternative green energy carriers. So now, looking at the impact that the decarbonization, for example, of the mobility sector can have in terms of greenhouse gases reduction, thanks to a better use of energy, or let's say a lower use of fuel, for example, I would like to bring two examples. The first one is related to, let's say, a last mile delivery facilitated by these autonomous vehicles, fully electric, that was developed by Teleretail and very successful. And it is estimated, based on the pilot that they have made, that if deployed at scale, this could achieve a massive reduction of cost of transport. And the second example, instead, is not on road, but in the sea. So a digital port platform. This is about equipping ports and shipping companies and all the stakeholders that operate around the maritime logistics sector of a capability that, thanks to a better knowledge of estimated time of arrival at ports, of the route of the ships, of environmental impact, weather data, can reduce waiting time, for example, of ships at ports, and therefore achieve a very strong decrease of the environmental footprint of maritime transport. And this is a solution that is already being deployed in some ports in France, and looking at expanding to other markets like the North European markets and the Asian. This other example is about energy efficiency and is focused on the UK, and it provides a map, thanks to the fusion and the processing of different type of data, of the current, let's say, energy efficiency footprint in the UK. So this mix is not only thermal and optical satellite images, but also other data like sensor data, government data, to provide a number of indicators that help governments prioritize measurements and actions. And finally, this is another example that relates to the topic of electric mobility. So we all know, and I will come back to this, that one of the main challenges that we face now is moving to electric type of mobility. And this project that was very successful, again in the UK, is called Human Switch, and works at the intersection of mobility and energy, and supports creating dashboards which are mapping drivers' behavior and support them to switch from their let's say benzene car to an electric car, helping them to find the information where to go to charge their car, but also where they can give back energy that they don't need to the grid against the compensation. So this is a solution that helps consumers as well as public authorities incentivizing the utilization of electric vehicles. And finally, the third topic. The third topic was about methane emission, how to curb down methane. And here I would like to bring the example of Methane Watch. Methane Watch is a platform developed by a French company, Kairos, that is helping identifying the sources of methane and support the detection of leaks. They started some year ago, and they use data from sentinels, different type of sentinels data, and in order to monitor the emissions. And their success has been very, very fast. They have also been supported by venture capital funds, by New Space Capital, and their vision is for 2030 to be part of the Global Methane Pledge. So to have a platform, an online, fully fledged platform that can provide this digital monitoring, supporting, reporting, and verification at a large scale. I would like also to explain a part of these very specific examples that I hope went in the direction of see what space can do for specific challenges around energy sustainability and energy transition. We have also made a more comprehensive mapping of all the activities, like Geraldine showed before, related to the energy sector that we have supported as part of the portfolio of business application and solution activities related to the green transition. And if we look specifically at the energy sector, we have analyzed through a dedicated dossier, which is called the Energy Dossier, all the activities that we could support and which stages of the energy, let's say, value chain they have been supported and what is the impact that they brought. And here you can see in the graphic that the most of the activity have addressed the problems related to operation, maintenance, and planning. And however, we of course remain very open to any other good idea that can be developed in any of these sectors and really to help addressing the challenges faced today and in the future. Also providing a snapshot of the socio-economic impact that the companies were able to generate thanks to these projects. And here you can see that we have analyzed only a sample of projects, particularly 16 out of the whole portfolio of energy projects. And we have seen that 50% of the projects already generate sale during the project itself, so even before the end of the projects, and they have been able to achieve a factor 5 multipliers in relation to the investment that the companies have dedicated. So that's really quite significant and testifies let's say the attractiveness of this type of solution encountered in the market. We have started also a number of partnerships with stakeholders from the energy sector in order to understand better what are their challenges, what are their needs, how we could address them, and also how the solutions that were developed in the project could find a wider acceptance. And here you can see the current partners. We are, of course, open to discuss with any other, let's say, stakeholders or potential users that can help this understanding. And we are also then, based on this understanding, able to develop always new initiatives that can address those needs. You see in this chart all the ones that were developed until now from 2020 and the ideas on which we are working on for the future. One of them is specifically electromobility, and there is an invitation to tender planned to be open in Q3 of this year. And this is a sector that is, of course, triggered by regulations that have been put in place, mandating all the automotive sector to transit to this form of mobility by 2035. And we believe that there is a strong role that space can play in it. There are several topics of relevance, both related to supporting the planning of the electrification infrastructure rollout in urban as well as rural area, supporting the grid resilience, and also new services to drivers to encourage V2G, so vehicle to infrastructure applications. There are several ways, and again, we are not prescriptive in which we believe that space can help, but let's just imagine that and think that GNSS data can provide to driver useful information about the location of the service points, but also the traffic density, and give insight in their route planning. Satellite communications can provide reliable connectivity in the area where there is no terrestrial connectivity, and as well be a backup in case of failures of the terrestrial network. And finally, Earth observation data can support decision making on the deployment locations of the infrastructure. One last topic I would like to mention is around energy circularity, and it's a topic of waste to energy. I didn't know, I was surprised myself, that there are already more than 500 plants in Europe that treat about 100 million tons of waste. And this is a data that we have gathered thanks to the discussion of our partners, that is the coordination of European waste to energy. And that triggered us to think how from space this technology, the uptake of this technology can be helped. And discussing with them, we have found that actually there are several use cases that could be addressed, from market insight to the operation and monitoring to the cleanup and landfill mining. So we have encouraged all companies through a call for a Kickstart thematic call that is currently open and closes beginning of May to address these use cases as well as others that could be relevant to the topic of waste to energy, and come up with proposals for sustainable services. Of course, there will be probably many more challenges in the future to be addressed, and we are open to discuss with you, and of course encourage companies to come up with new and innovative ideas that would be relevant. Thank you. I look forward for the discussion later on.
Actually, we have 10 minutes for question and answers. So if anyone has question in the audience, you can just raise your hands and we will go for you with the mics. Any questions?
Yeah, I will just make, my name is Doni Aminu. I'm a retiree from ESA, just a young retiree from January. But listening to you, I wanted just to make a comment. I think one of the major problems that maybe space cannot fix is our consumption as well. Consumption of food, but energy as well, because everything we do is energy. And I think the fight is really to go, like you are doing it, to fight our energy consumption. But this goes also to our own applications sometimes. I was in a conference right before I retired, and we were talking about, for every image we wanted high resolution images. And high resolution images means also processing needs lots of power consumption. So we have to put some red lines everywhere, actually, not only allowing consumption as we do, but finding solutions on how to observe those consumptions, because this is what we do. Just a comment for thinking.
Marc Vallès, Dassault Aviation. I fully share this comment, and I think that maybe we should think about consuming in space as more as we can. So it's true for computation, it's true for a lot of things. So of course it is for the Earth, benefit of Earth, but I think that we should emphasize all the motion of industry to space. It could be also a target.
Phil Ringrose, Norwegian University of Science and Technology. Really good talk, thank you very much. You emphasized the human aspect of people switching to electrical vehicles, which I thought was interesting. We already have 90% electric vehicle take-up in Norway for new cars, but you have to change people's minds. So I'm just thinking, have you got an initiative to make space data and spatial data available to the public rather than just for experts?
Thank you for the question. First of all, I do agree that the cultural change that has to come together with the technology. So that's very clear. And this is why we work together with cities, and we have also dedicated activities around the cultural change. About the availability of the data, I think there are several types of data. So as you know, the Copernicus data are already freely available. Now the point is whether the raw data can be understood immediately by the public. And what we see is that there is more and more need of developing space solutions or developing services that take those data and probably combine them with other data that are from in situ data, that are from cadastre data, that are from many other data, and process them smartly. And that, I would say, is also where the intelligence is in doing this processing. And this is why companies that are extremely successful are the ones that develop innovative solutions that is not so much about developing the data or the sensors in space, but also processing them smartly and fusing with other data. That's where the value added of this business proposition is. And this is something that I'm afraid the normal citizen like me cannot do, looking only at the raw data, because I would not be able to interpret it. There would be somebody else that needs to interpret it for me, give me a service, and at the same time explain me that this is not something that I have to adopt because of, let's say, environment policy, but because I have an advantage of it, and this goes together with the cultural change point. I hope I have addressed your point. Thank you.
Sonda Dalton, Scottish Development International. It's really an extension of what you're saying, but I think I actually work across the whole of tech, so I go to a lot of different types of tech conferences. And I think when you work in space, there's a very clear understanding why we're sending satellites to space and what the end goal is, being what we're able to do with the data. But I do think from a general public perspective, you read about a launch, but you don't actually talk about why you're launching something, and therefore it's the negative polluting side of the launch that's seen, as opposed to the fact that people every day are using a minimum of 5 applications and they don't even realize it. So I think really it has to actually have more of a focus on what is actually being benefited from having launched, building satellites, developing applications, analyzing those applications, or what would be lost if we weren't doing it even today.
Yeah, I mean, I think the comment is very clear, and being aware of that, what we try is really to show what is the impact of our activity. And until a couple of years ago, we were looking mainly at the socioeconomic impact in terms of jobs created, in terms of revenues for the company. But now we also try to measure the green impact. So, for example, what is actually the reduction in CO2 that this service that is using space data brings, or what is the reduction in water use for agriculture. So just really to be aware and to make people aware. So we need to communicate, of course, along this narrative as well, of the benefits that this can bring.
Hello, Eva Schmidt from the German Energy Agency. First of all, I would like to completely agree with what has just been said. I think that's very true, and I kind of dug myself into figuring out what space actually does for specifically energy transition in the last half year, and I'm very pleased about this event. I have a question regarding data, in that sense that I have a background in energy system modeling, and I had a very long journey at ENSO-E, kind of fighting for open data, because it's a huge problem for science and all sorts of business applications to have data with the right juridical background, basically. And I'm wondering whether you could say anything a bit more generalized, probably, about the nature of the data that can be expected in this context, because on the one hand, it's like space observation data, and then some of it is probably publicly funded, and then there's this idea of public money, public projects, public data, and so on and so forth. On the other hand, I do understand that there's a lot of reasons for putting property rights on data, not only for economic reasons, but sometimes then specifically with power grids, also for security reasons and so on. Can you say something about that?
Sure. So I think there are several, let's say, facets of this question, because the projects that you have seen in the example, they use different type of data. They do use different types of data because depending on the need, depending on the requirement, you need to use. Well, one can develop a solution that requires data that are, for example, freely available, like Copernicus data, or maybe that they are provided by commercial providers. So it's clear that there is a difference and in the type of data that can be used. And there is, of course, a consequent difference on the price of the services that will be provided, because ultimately this solution needs to be commercially made available. So they will need to take into account also the economic aspect of using free data with respect to sourcing other data. So if they source commercial data, they need then to take into account in their business case and quote for it at the end. So there is, I wouldn't say in response to their question, first of all, it's not only about space data, because providing a services means often integrated different technologies. And for example, if you talk about satellite connectivity, this is provided commercially. So there are several components, I would say, that they need to be integrated to provide the final solution, and some of them could be freely available, some others need to be commercially sourced. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rita. And now is the time for the Space Innovation for Energy Transition Award. I would like to call on the stage the startup who are going to pitch. Camilla Taylor, who is a CFO from Satellite View, Carolina Gomez Rodriguez, CEO of Flucto, Frano Setinic, CEO of Edinside AS, Simon Pruller, CEO of Second Cycle Flex CEO, and I would also like to invite the jury to sit on the front desk, Antea Comellini, Rita Rinaldo, Maria Zaretesca, Beatrice Barresi, and Davide Coppola. Thank you. After each pitch, we will have just a general rule for everybody. We will have the opportunity to ask 1 or 2 questions, not more than that. Welcome. So the first one is Camilla.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, ESA, and for your ongoing support to our mission. I'm really excited to share some imagery from satellite view to give you a flavor of the power of high-resolution infrared data and how impactful and disruptive that data can be on energy sustainability theme. So this is an image. It's an optical image. You can see the roof of the buildings, the exterior structure. It was taken during the day, and it gives us some information about what's going on in this storage tanks. The next image is from Landsat. It's about 100-meter resolution infrared image, and this is satellite views, 3.5-meter resolution image taken at nighttime over these oil tanks. And what it allows us to do is to see the level of storage inside these tanks, giving us a new data layer. So this is Satellite's business and our technology. We have launched our first satellite last year. It was built by Satellite Technology in the UK, and really has proven our technology. We have a exclusive technology relationship and proprietary software to process the imagery, and we're working on our second and third satellites now. Unfortunately, the first satellite suffered a failure in orbit last December, but really proved that we have space heritage now. We've proven that the image is extremely valuable from a commercial perspective, both with national security, economic monitoring, and climate change-related applications. So I'm going to illustrate the kind of range of insights that we can gather using our imagery. This is the port of Yokohama in Japan. It's an image that HotSat 1 took at nighttime. So again, goes beyond what's possible with optical imagery, because we can generate a lot of information at nighttime before even looking at the activity levels from the IR data. So the circled features allow us to understand industrial activity, oil storage, power generation activity, urban heat island effect and extreme heat in cities, vessel activity. We actually collect video imagery, and so we can understand direction of travel, speed of travel. The thermal contamination is visible from plants that are producing effluent, potentially in a non-compliant way with excess heat. And we can also understand solar farm efficiency and faults. I'm going to spotlight 3 of these that are pertinent to the energy sustainability theme in the next 3 slides. This is the thermal power station in the previous slide at Yokohama. On the left, you can see 8 turbines, but on the right, you can see the activity levels in these 8 turbines. And if you understand the fuel and the capacity and these activity levels from the image, then you can understand the amount of fuel that's being used in that image. Data like this across a country can give us signals around ability to monitor the data to support the energy intensity improvements and to verify sustainable energy mix and CO2 goals. This image is an oil refinery in the UAE. You can see gas flaring on the left in our image, and also oil refinery activity at the subplant level, and also hot effluent water on the right-hand side. Data enables monitoring capacity and looking at forecasting for output in a very real-time way that's currently not possible, enables trading decisions. We've got some really interesting conversations going on with partners around this particular topic. It's very difficult to get this kind of information in any other way. It also gives insights into the commissioning progress of new build developments. This last one is our solar farm fault detection app, which we've built, and it's really just to illustrate what's possible with the data at this point. So we use an AI model to identify efficiency and fault anomalies in very large farms that would otherwise be monitored by drone or aerial views, and these heat variations are absolutely impossible to see in the optical image. This is just the start, and as we're scaling up our offering, we're looking at opportunities to recover waste heat and many other environmental phenomena. I'll leave you with our scale-up credentials. We've raised substantially to date and proven our technology in space. We've built a very effective team ready to scale, been very lucky to be awarded grants, and have a very strong commercialization opportunity ahead with a path to profitability, which is independent of the number of satellites we launch. So from here on, we're really on a great trajectory. Thank you.
Any questions from anyone? We have time for 1 or 2 questions.
Thank you for a very nice presentation. This is Rezargander from Norway. Quick question. If you look at the temperature change between 2 satellites image, what's the accuracy in terms of degree of centigrade change of temperature can be observed in this kind of image? Thank you.
So we can monitor 2-degree absolute temperature. We're working on land surface temperature monitoring, so we can understand within one image currently very easily what's the relative temperature, and we're working on being able to compare images taken of different locations at different times to understand the relative temperatures going on at a 2-degree kind of window. Mm-hmm.
Any other question? Thank you. Okay.
Hello, I am Carolina Gomez Rodriguez from Flucto GmbH. I am the CEO of this company, pursuing the digitization of offshore wind installation processes. And you might be wondering, why is this important? How is this critical? How is this space related? Well, it results that offshore wind installations are kind of difficult, and those are a crucial part into having offshore wind energy. To put it into perspective, well, building up offshore wind turbine, well, in size is 3 times bigger than the Ariane 5, just to put it into perspective. And to choreograph all this installation process, well, it's kind of like a challenge, because similar like with the space programs, you will need a bunch of specialists giving their own data, and they all have their own metrics. So how do we solve this problem? Well, space is the solution. Space brings us to put all these different data into a synchronized dashboard with the help of the timestamp and the positioning data. And here is what Flucto comes, and we are the Capcom for offshore wind in installation systems. We bring all this important data that is critical for you on the tip of your hands. You can just check either if you're on the vessel or on beach. Everybody has the same data. Everything is in real time. Where are we now? We're currently a team of 5, and we are in an installation vessel in Taiwan. So, well, the system is proven, but now the next steps is where we want to go. We want to be the standard for installation vessels for all the offshore wind farms. And here is my call to action and where I would like to, I think I'm in the right place right now because we would like to speed up the commercialization process. And here is where I would like to pick your brains about it. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Anyone? Okay.
Everything clear? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, hello. My name is Frano Setnic. I'm from a company called ED Insights, and we provide water storage information. Water storage in terms of the water that is in the snowpack or water that is in the hydropower reservoir. And we sell this to hydropower businesses and energy trading businesses. And today, I'm going to present a service that is called PowerEdge, which will set the standard for how snow measurements are performed. So hydropower is really a good energy source. It is renewable, but it's also very, very flexible. And it can help, for instance, more unstable energy sources such as solar and wind and stabilize the need for energy. But in the Nordic countries, more than 50% of the water is stored as snow. So keeping track of snow is really, really important. To be or not to be, that was a famous question by William Shakespeare and the play Hamlet. But in the world of hydropower, it is, should we produce, should we not produce? And since you know that 50% of the water comes from snow, it's super important to track the snow storage. The snow drives electricity prices, so it depends directly the revenue, the profits, but it can also lead to floodings and droughts. So what's the problem? The problem is that it's so difficult to measure snow. The images to your right here, that's me taking some images when I was in a snow campaign with a bunch of hydropower companies. And we have been planning for this campaign for a couple of weeks. And I was very, very excited. The day before the campaign, no campaign, weather conditions stopped everything, and we have to sort of replan the whole campaign. Eventually, of course, there was a good sunny day, and we could all go out and measure snow. But even when you measure snow, then you have to measure the density at some point, and you have to measure the snow depth. And all this is uncertainty. And that not only that, after you assume that those measurements are accurate, you then have to extrapolate over a large area. So measuring snow gives a lot of uncertainty. So to meet this challenge, we have developed a service that is called PowerEdge. And it is currently being demonstrated as part of the ESA demonstration project. It is near real-time, high-resolution service, and it provides physical measurements. And we have been able to develop this service after years of R&D, and we have been strategically collecting and buying a specific type of satellite data that can measure this. We have done it over a couple of years, and we have been having access to a lot of validation data from our customers that are basically the major hydropower companies in Norway and Sweden. Yeah, so to summarize, after hopefully a successful demonstration, we hope that we are going to help to set a new standard with, for snow storage measurement with the Power Edge service. Thank you.
Again, if anyone has a question, you're just invited to raise your hands.
I'm Oscar from Elia. Do you see a market for this product away from Europe, like the US, Canada, or somewhere else? What's your target niche market?
Certainly. Of course, snow is very big in Nordics, but I think that the next step for us will be North America. Of course, Alps is certainly a market, and we have been in contact with clients there, but it also comes down to storage capacity, and that sort of there's a deregulated price mechanism here. That's when the value of the snow is very high.
Hello and welcome to my presentation about second cycle. We are focused on a smart solution for upcycling used solar panels, making it cost efficient through automation. There we go. Currently, around 4 billion solar panels are in place and converting sunlight into electrical energy on a daily basis. And every day, 3 million new solar panels are added to the 4 billion. But many of them are taken down before their time is up. This happens during what is called repowering, where all existing solar panels are replaced with new ones for increasing the power output of a solar farm. And as you can see on the figure to the right, there is a massive increase in used solar panels coming in the next 10 years. And surprisingly, up to 70% of these dismantled solar panels can be brought into a second life cycle. But the problem right now is that many of these used solar panels are scrapped, illegally exported, or even being downcycled without being properly tested. Why? Because manual testing is the current norm and too expensive. With our solution, a fully automated upcycling plant for used solar panels, we are able to cut costs by around 80% compared to a manual refurbishment. The process includes handling, cleaning the solar panels, identifying the panel type. We have 6 different testing procedures, including imaging spectrometry, a ESA patent license, having machine learning algorithms to detect defects, creating a test protocol, and we are also doing minor repairs like swapping safety relevant connectors. But here's the kicker, we are not only building upcycling plants, we're gathering a lot of data from all the different kind of solar panel types, defects, power degradation and so on, and combining them with on-site data, thermography drones, inverter data from the solar farm, and also we are digging into a research project called SAR4Spec, where we use SAR satellite data for solar park efficiency control. And with all this data, we're able to fine-tune our algorithms, use it in the upcycling plant, but also for making smarter decisions at on-site testing. Let's talk business. In phase 1, we want to sell stationary upcycling plants to recycling companies, making money with machine sales, and also charging a small fee for every test protocol that is created, providing state-of-the-art algorithm and data. In phase 2, we want to develop a mobile upcycling plant which can be used directly at the solar farm. And in phase 3, we want to provide algorithms and data for solar farm operators. Our vision at Second Cycle is to be market leader in technology for refurbishing used solar panels, and currently we are building our prototype in Austria. If you are interested in piloting our technology or investing in Second Cycle, please get in touch. Thank you very much. Not so many questions.
Thank you for this great presentation. My question is, who would be a potential customer for these upcycled solar panels?
Yeah, in phase 1, so one of our biggest investors is a recycling company. They would run like this upcycling plant before they recycle. So yeah, in phase 1, like big recycling companies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I invite everyone for a 30 minutes break. So we see each other back at 4:30 here. Thank you very much.
Hello? Hello? So let's take a seat. We are going to restart. So our next session is a roundtable discussion, and I would like to invite here with me Beatrice Barresi, who is going to moderate the session and who is going to introduce also the speakers. Thank you, Beatrice.
Thank you, Donatella. Okay, so welcome back after the coffee break. This roundtable is about energy and sustainability. I'm very glad to be here because I'm the sustainability officer of BUS, the program that was mentioned a few times already. So for me, being part of a panel dealing with sustainability, it's kind of, what they say, bread and butter for me. But of course, I will not be alone in this discussion, so I kindly ask my speakers to come and to join me on the stage. So we have Marini Code. She's the investment director at Extension VC. Then we have Declan Keller, who is the head of innovation technology for hydropower and dams at the Gruner Stucky Ltd. Rainer Malberg, who is the business development manager for geospatial solution at IABG. Just take a seat where you want. And last but not least, Jonas Frank, managing director at Remote Sensing Solution RSS. So welcome and thank you. We have a lot of microphone here, so we are going to discuss the topic of today, and I have to say my work as moderator has been quite easy this afternoon because usually I should have introduced the topic, but the great speech that we heard before from Rita and Brandon did a lot of job for us, so I think we know right now what are the challenges, what are the gaps. Of course, we are not going to find all the solutions in this panel, but let's hear from the different perspectives. And again, I think we are quite lucky in this sense because we have a good mixture of representative because we have the demand, the supply side from the energy sector. So I will start with perhaps the demand side. So I will ask Declan. I said that you work talking about very close to hydropowers and dams operators, but can you explain a bit more in details what you do, who are your customers, which kind of solution you provide for them?
Okay. Hello, everybody. So Gruner and Gruner Stucky Ltd, we're engineering consultants. We are active in 3 different domains, so infrastructure, buildings, and energy. In energy, we are predominantly dam engineers and hydropower engineers. So we, Alfred Stucky was the original designer of about 2/3 of the, or maybe a half of the dams in Valais in Switzerland. So, and that's our heritage there is that we've long history of dam design, so we now are active worldwide. We provide everything from master planning to detailed design and construction design of hydropower plants, dams. We're also active in solar energy. Our main clients would be, so we have public and private. In the private side, we have private developers, investors, and in the public side, we would have national governments and the World Bank, IFIs, etc., etc. Something else?
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And I would think about what was said before about accelerating the adoption of renewable energies. And in this respect, I think what you are doing in terms of supporting hydropowers and all things related, that's really important. But could you perhaps elaborate a bit on the challenges that your customers are facing, especially now we heard the green transition and so on, but what are the challenges for them in becoming greener and adopting these kind of solutions?
For engineering design, we always have one of the main issues, and it's correct that it's an issue, is environmental and social impact. So we always have the requirement to do the environmental and social impact studies for both the design but also for the financiers. So you won't get financial closure unless you have your environmental mitigation measures in place. Maybe sometimes you don't get to do the project at all because the environmental impact is so damaging to the environment and you can't find the mitigation measures. In terms of the other challenges, we also have the challenge of hydropower projects are very long in the making. So what happens, it's not really related to Earth observation or satellite images, but we often survive many political cycles. So with regards to the green transition, if we have a political will that is very long-term, it's much better for hydropower design and hydropower projects in general that they have more chance of succeeding because of political support over long-term, regardless of which political party is in power.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Maybe I will add now a new participant in the discussion, and I will ask you, Jonas, let's say from the supply side. So we heard the demand, the supply side. Of course, I mean, you are the ones providing the solutions to the different stakeholders. Can you elaborate a bit on the role of space and digital technologies in the work that you do? Which kind of services do you provide, and how these, let's say, novel technologies help you in doing that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, a little bit on the background, what we are doing. Remote sensing solutions, it's mainly focused on environmental monitoring. So we are a global service provider, and we also provide geospatial intelligence to activities in the energy transition, but mainly in the planning phase of certain interventions and strategies. So their Earth observation data can help a lot. Together, we heard it this morning, together with other data. That's a very important aspect when we talk about the planning of renewable energies and the expansion of it. We have to combine the Earth observation data together with already existing data from the energy sector, but also from other environmental aspects in order to really provide evidence on where to do the right things.
Again, I think it's very important to think about this issue that we have in accelerating and using more and more renewable energies. Talking about renewable energies, the planning that you were mentioning can be applied to any kind of source, like solar, wind, or there is a specific source that you think it's more relevant?
Mm-hmm. Particularly in the area planning domain of the energy transition, that's where Earth observation data can unfold their potential. So, for example, what we developed is an online planning tool, because the problem is the energy transition is often steered or planned at the national regulations, for example. So we have in Germany regulation on the energy transition, we have it here in France and in other countries, but the implementation is taking practically on the ground in municipalities, so locally. And they often don't know their demands. Sometimes they know their demands, but they don't know their potential. So, and we developed a kind of a planning tool, so the municipalities can play around with their data in terms of, I would like to have 20% wind power coverage and 30% UV, PV, and also bioenergy plants, for example. And they get spit out the most suitable areas in their municipality in order to have a kind of a planning base. So they can play around a little bit.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for this example, because it was a question before, like how we can make data and information closer, how we can bring them to the user. And I think these are excellent examples, because the solution, the service will be for municipalities, for the practitioners of the city, so people that are not experts with EO and other technologies, but still they can use the data because you do that work for them. I mean, you are like the gap between the data and the information. So yeah, I think that's very important. So now back to you, Rainer. Like, tell us a bit from your perspective, examples of solutions that IABG has developed also for the green transition.
I think it depends a little bit on that where we are at the moment. I think the key factor for the green transition is, and the decarbonization is mainly to increase the share of the green energy and in the power mix and to decrease the fossil energy sources. So that means, for example, we heard about one example in the one presentation before. We have been also in an ESA business application program where we developed a tool where we use Earth observation data to detect settlements, for example, in an area where you do not have any electricity. So that means you see that there is an increasing demand, but you have to avoid that they use fossil energy. That means you support them in the electrification process, where our clients are the developer of microgrids, or also to support financial institutions to finance these activities and programs, but also national authorities who are active in this rural development. Another issue, and I think it's very important, it was also mentioned before, most of the time there are not Earth observation experts, so that means you have to provide the data in a very customized and user-friendly way and user-friendly technology. And another issue is when you have already, for example, in Europe, we have in Germany the situation, we would like to reduce the use of coal. Yeah, so that means we use coal mines for the planning of, for example, wind parks or energy or solar energy parks. So that means the customer are really different. And these are more the regional renewable energy suppliers in Germany. And here in that case, we make the site planning, but also the connection of wind parks via, for example, satellite communication, because all these parks, I think all the energy resources are critical infrastructure. So that means we have very often the issue with cybersecurity and connectivity. And I think, and the last one is really, I would like to pick up one very important activities, and also I would like to thank ESA, for example, to start some projects like, for example, the GDA or Business Application Program. And currently we are dealing in this clean energy program. We are leading that also together with Jonas is in the team. So it's that to address or to support international financial institutions in using Earth observation in their processes, and of course also the end user. And I think the important aspect is that all the projects must be transferable, must be scalable, and of course it must also provide very fast and quick time to market services. This is also very important. And one last aspect is to build up the awareness. Very often the users are aware of the potential of Earth observation information. And that's what we are also working on. And this is, for example, a very important aspect of this Global Development Assistance Program of the World Bank. So that means we have a wide range of users, of customers, and services.
And I think it's also why we are organizing events like that, to help that promotion, that awareness of the capabilities of space around different sectors such as energy. And I think also your point, you touched upon very important elements, the collaboration between the different stakeholders. We've seen also in our program how important it is to bring in together the different operators, the different actors, because for sure we will not reach that ambitious challenges that were mentioned before in isolation. So we really need to promote the collaboration. And the program that you also mentioned are important for companies. We try to provide funding and so on, but we cannot do the work alone. So that's why we have, let's say, stakeholders like Marie that can help us in helping also the companies in growing. So maybe you can also let us know your perspective from the venture capitalist point of view.
Okay, so yeah, we're investors, VC investors, so we invest in early stage companies from pre-seed to Series A. Most of the times leveraging also the public efforts or the institution like ESA efforts granting grants or projects or even contracts. And we are here to leverage and increase that dynamic and going from the labs or the idea to a full market fit product. And as a specialized VC, our job also is to understand the trends and what's required by users like you or by operators, and what would be the perfect market fit. We're considering the requirements and the needs of the market. For instance, on Earth observation, if we can combine the verticals with oil and gas, for instance, and the needs for insurance or finance aspects, then you have a huge market and lots of needs, and so lots of solutions rising. And then these solutions can be used for other kind of business case and so on. So we're here to try to find the best product, the best solution, and also enhance new business models and define what would be useful in the future. And for instance, on Earth observation, last year, globally there was 1.9 billion investment as a whole in the whole domain. And the Earth observation market is about 3.6 billion right now and will increase again. So lots of opportunities, lots of jobs to do, lots of solutions to find. And also as investors, our job also is to focus on the whole value chain and be sure that we don't invest only on applications or data, but also on the whole chain, the whole ecosystem required to do these kind of solutions. And also they are done in a more sustainable way. So for instance, we also invest on satellites, manufacturers, on launchers, and reusable launching systems, for instance, or satellites which will be more reliable, long life duration, more modular, for instance, could be. And because sustainability will happen if it's taken as a whole, and we have a chance because this new space ecosystem, as its name sounds, is new, so we can build a whole sustainable approach on that. And so we work on, as you mentioned, scalability, life duration, reliability, and also CapEx intensive stuff. It's our job to take the risk to finance that also.
Thank you, thanks a lot. And I think it will be very useful also for the sake of participants today. Maybe if you could give some examples of, without leaving any sensitive information, of examples of companies or projects that you have supported in the past and why they were selected.
So on Earth observation, for instance, well, it's a kind of market we are focusing right now, and we would like to find new companies. Some of you already know. But for instance, we invested in Orbify, which is a Polish startup working on visualization of Earth observation data, and which could be useful for consulting firms and having all these kind of layers to understand more about Earth observation. Also investing in launchers like Latitude or Hyperspace, working on to have the start of this whole value chain required, and also working with them, thinking about all kind of propulsion and reusability. Also invested in new kind of propulsion for satellites, for instance, which could be more reusable. And another interesting domain is space situational awareness. Could seem a bit far away from that, but in fact it's really close, because if we have this lot of Earth observation companies, we'll have lots and lots of satellites. And if we have lots and lots of satellites...
I think the battery is flashing, so yeah.
Speak too much, so no battery. So if we have these lots of satellites, we have the space will be crowded, so we have to work on that and monitor space. So we invested, for instance, in Lookup Space, working to monitor space with radars on the ground, and Aldoria doing the same but with telescopes. And the idea is to make all this space ecosystem more manageable and monitored.
So yeah, exactly as you were saying, the whole ecosystem from the upstream to the downstream part. Okay, so I think in terms of first round, we already provide a few interesting elements. So I would like now open to the audience in case there are questions for any of the speakers, any comment or point of reflection that you would like to share. if you could also say, okay, of course, your name and to whom is the questions.
This is Reza Argande. The question is to the panel. In this perspective that you presented, what can be the role of climate change in terms of the investments and the applications? Because the horizon we see in 5 years or 10 years from now is different from what we would see 10 years ago today. So especially maybe for Maria and others, yeah, how do you see the investments will be impacted considering the climate change in all this kind of financial perspective to the startups?
Yeah, first Maria, and then we give, well, the others will think about it, because it's not an easy answer, so an easy question to answer.
So first, I think that the boom on Earth observation is the first step in the sense that it helps us understand the situation and what would be the trends later on. And for instance, more than half of the indicators in the GIEC report come from space, as you must already know. And so for now, I think for the coming years, we'll have a lot more and more solution related to Earth observation, to understand more, to focus on some use case, and also, as I mentioned, to try to address the whole verticals and try to find some new models and way of understanding and financing also that. There will be also lots of new regulation and new obligations, so stuff to monitor, as you mentioned previously. And there will be a need for like certified data and something which become the rules. And it will be not so open or free as it used to be. So there will be a need for a whole chain, like certified and perfectly traceable. And I think we don't already know what it will lead us to, but could be a whole lots of stuff. And then, as I mentioned, the system, the ecosystem will grow and we settle as a whole. And so that's why we have to focus on the whole value chain. I think also that there will be more and more need for like modular payload, not one satellite for one payload, but probably one satellite or something like a satellite with different kind of payloads for different use case. I think it's what happened in other industries on the ground, so probably would be that in space also. And also then if you say that there will be the need for life duration, refueling, maintenance, stuff like that, monitoring, so the whole stuff, everything we know on the ground probably will go on space.
Maybe this is also a good opportunity for Earth observation data for supporting climate risk assessments for investments. So the data is there, particularly climate data is there, added with Earth observation data. It's already now where this kind of data can really support the de-risking of investments. But also in terms of extreme events, this is something when I, for example, do investments into a certain renewable energy, what is the return on investments in 20 years? Is, let's say, the environmental setup or the climate changing in a way that I have a higher or less return of investment? That also can, let's say, be projected in a way. Or even better, in this case, it was a bad example for the German forests, for example. We lost 500,000 hectares forest in Germany because of drought. We have 3 consecutive drought events in Germany, lost 500,000 hectares of forest. All the foresters don't know what to do anymore because they have to reforest. But now energy companies come in and would like to establish wind power plants on that damaged areas, because that is also a good opportunity for maybe both sides. It's a big discussion, but also this can be pretty quickly, these kind of extreme events can happen pretty quickly. Also then in terms of investments into renewable energies, yeah.
Any words from you?
Yeah, I think this is also, for example, we are still dealing with the World Bank in an electricity distribution modernization program in Bangladesh. I think that's how can we answer to this new extreme weather events. So that means you have to enhance the infrastructure. As I just mentioned, the infrastructure is also a critical infrastructure. And so this is so also the national, in that case Bangladesh, invest a lot into the adaptation, climate change adaptation, and how are the requirements on these on the assets. Yeah. And also one thing, also in the simulation, when I think about hydro dams, we had also discussion about Allianz, for example, this insurance company who make the insurance for hydro dams also during the building phase. And so they are asked now for completely different scenarios. It's not the 100.
Just the insurance guys.
Sorry, not only the insurance. So now they really have in mind that it's not enough to simulate a 100-year event. It's getting higher and higher. I think this is also a reaction on that, what you just mentioned.
We have it on the ground as well. We have the environmental and social risk assessments now involve a climate change risk assessment, because climate change impacts hydrology. So the investment, it's not working? Oh, sorry. So the investment, the actual project, the life of the project is actually dependent on the investment at the stage, because we're very capital intensive at the start. So we have to make sure that the hydrology will be correct for 50 years or more. As you can see now, we have dams which are coming to the end of life, which we have to renovate, rehabilitate. We have to upgrade the dam safety. We see with operations like Fukushima, where we have nuclear power plants where instead of a 1,000-year flood, we have to protect against a 10,000-year flood. These are all as a result of climate change. So we're really seeing it on the ground from the point of view of what's being asked of us by the clients. So it's really, you know, projects that are cancelled because you don't have enough water.
Thank you for the questions. You can see it took a lot of inspiration and interest from the panelists. Anyone else who wants to share question or comments?
Jana Karol from ArcSpace. The question probably mostly to Jonas, to others. So what is missing in Earth observation? We have a lot of satellites, a lot of data. What is really missing? What do we need? Do we really need more of satellites? Or probably we have to more concentrate on processing, on connecting final end users like agriculture, insurance, real estate, whoever, with the data providers. Should we launch more satellites? What is missing here? Maybe we should, because we are populating space, we are launching tens and hundreds of satellites, constellations. Maybe we should focus on like multi-payload on one platform, or maybe we just need to focus on processing, on really let people see each other from end users and data providers. What do you think? What is missing here?
Well, that's my personal perspective, but I would say there are definitely, let's just talk about the energy sector. There might be definitely some applications where new satellites might be missing at the moment. So, but generally, we have a lot of data already, which needs to be, there must be value added for the energy sector. We are mainly missing the lack of, the awareness. We have a lack of awareness in the sector. So we have so much data, a lot of data that could be really benefiting the energy transition or the electrification in developing countries, which we really not touch upon. Just a minor percentage of the data we have is really used by the energy sector. And this is, let's say, our main challenge.
I agree 100% with what you are saying. Of course, I mean, maybe it's, I guess, the interest of being part of the European Space Agency, not launching more satellites, but I think in terms of data, we have a lot. The issue is now to get information, like useful, actionable information that the users can use in different contexts, especially for the green transition.
And the point also, I can add 2 points. The first is that And you're right, there are lots of data and different kind of data, and the main stuff is to have the proper mix and to put just the kind of data on the different category that's missing for this particular analysis. So probably we will need some other satellites and payloads, but just the small stuff missing and not the whole constellation and so on. And that's how to dimension, to size this new need. And second, to your point, and I completely agree, is also the fact that for now, Earth observation companies, they're still struggling with the application to verticals. It's easy to understand when you are a data provider or when you are first application, but for analytics related to one kind of vertical, it's really difficult for them to explain what they do and to valorize it. And in the whole bunch of investment I mentioned previously, there are really a small number of investment in the final analytics, because for everyone it's difficult to understand and difficult also to assess the market. Also because the final users like you are still starting to require stuff and to understand what space can bring. And so it's the whole dynamic that has to start, because for now it's difficult to valorize this kind of company that you're mentioning at the end of the value chain and making lots of analytics and algorithm and so on, because we need to understand more about the requirements of the real final chain.
Yeah, I think we still have time for another question.
Thank you very much. My name is Eftimios. I'm from the German Energy Agency in Berlin. I heard some nice lines and would like to go into detail. Jonas, you mentioned the awareness in the energy industry about space-based data or application. There is something missing or a link. And also, Marie, I just heard from you. I don't have a specific question, but how can we raise more awareness in the energy sector to work more intense with space-based data to benefit also from the technology which is already in place? I'm from the German Energy Agency, as I mentioned, and we are trying to figure out where this missing link is, or from which side do we have to push more information into the market, or if there is such great technology, why are some organizations not aware about it? Maybe you have an idea or some impression.
If you allow, maybe I will ask Declan to start from your point of view. What is missing?
When you said that, I thought of Netflix. You know why? Because I spend so much time trying to choose. There's so much data out there. What do I use? That's my problem. I don't know where to go for it. Sometimes I'm generalizing here. I ask my expert, and he'll go find it for me. But it's the problem that I see is usable data. Because I have a tiny little laptop, I'm not going to go off and buy a 50,000 laptop to process imagery from. So I need to, for me, the end user, I need to be able to have some vulgarized data, for the want of a better word, that I can use directly. That it's, love it or hate it, Google Earth is fantastic because I can install it on my PC. That's the missing link for me, is to know what data is in simple terms, not in overly acronym terms, that I can understand what it can be used for, and then is it usable day to day in our studies. So that's my point of view.
And I think another issue is, beside the awareness, the trust of the data is very important. So that means the quality assurance. Everybody here know there are so many global layers and so many data layers and different satellites. So I think it's very important to involve very early in the implementation of use cases, the user side, because I don't think that we can bring a solution by our own community as Earth observation experts. We have to be our service must be implemented into the I would say final process chain of the user. And I think when you ask for how can we support that, there are so many options. For example, here Bärbel Deisting is sitting here, so especially in Germany, we have business application programs where you can develop some use cases, co-finance, for example, by some programs and so on. So it means, I think the best way is to show the client that it works and that it could be implemented into their daily business. I think that's, and at the end of the day, because it's a combination of everything, and we are only a part of it.
And as an investor, I have to speak about money and cost also, but the thing is that it all comes also, as you mentioned, with the need and the requirement. So being able to formulate what these guys need, and probably would be interesting to understand then the pain in the costs, and also what's going on, and in the future with the coming regulation and coming new context, it will be more and more costly for them to work on that kind of business. And so what costs them, and what kind of solution, even if they have to pay for that, a new business model, what they can bring them, and in the end, the balance cost. Because the most powerful business model we find in Earth observation as an investor is when people have to pay for this solution, but in the end, they gain money, even if they had to pay for a solution. And so the best way to understand what you guys need and what you are ready to pay for, and what makes you happy in the end with that. And so I think, yeah, we all spoke about the necessity to make these two business have a dialogue, but also a dialogue based on pragmatic stuff, which is how much will that cost me and what can you bring me to help.
Maybe also just one thought, because you asked a question, you pointed to me. I feel obliged to answer.
Please.
One thing what we also experience in terms of, because you were asking on, let's say, what is missing to bring the data into operation more and more. There are already, particularly in Europe, well-established procedures in the planning of energy activities. And they work well. So why using kind of complex Earth observation data to improve here and there? This is something where we have to work on to really focus better on the real benefits, monetary benefits as well. Because what we see in developing countries, where they might have less well-established procedures, the uptake of our services are often much easier than in Europe. Because they are doing that kind of, they don't have generations of other technologies, they are really using the most pragmatic and data that is there. So it's often also the planning procedures that already work well here, why doing something different? And that's actually our job to do better, to convince people.
Yes, I am an old guy, so maybe I can help my colleague from energy. Things that you were 50 years ago, a guy from energy, and you talk to people making software, and you ask, what can you do for me? It is exactly the same thing. 50 years later, we know that software can do everything you need. But the question is really that we have, from the other side, from the people who are non-space, please just claim what are your pains. And very probably space will be able to solve a lot of them. But it comes from you. It comes from what are your dreams, what are your pains, and then probably space will help to solve them. Exactly like software 50 years ago. We are in the same trend that what it was 50 years ago for software. Data is there now. And sensors are developed. And satellites are coming up.
Thanks a lot. I'm sorry, I think we are almost reaching the end of our session, but of course the speakers will stay here. Tonight they're on the boat, so they cannot escape. If you have questions, so that's a good place to okay, yeah, you can always swim. Yes, but maybe before saying goodbye, I want to give you the possibility to leave a key message, 30 seconds that you would like that the audience step out with today, you can choose, sustainability, information, scalability. What is the key message if we want to achieve sustainability for energy?
Wow.
That was not prepared question, so it's the fat surprise.
No. I mean, the dream would be that, let's say, we have digital twins of all kind of energy plants that we have in the future. Digital twins in a way where Earth observation data is near real-time integrated, where other data from sensors are integrated to have a complete transparent and holistic view of our kind of energy demand and potentials and current situations.
I think it's getting important to be in a closer discussion with the end user, to be on both sides a better understanding of the real requirements and the possibilities of the technology.
From my point of view, is good usable data. It's that we can understand how to use simply. That's how I get the.
Right to the point.
I can design whatever, but I need good usable data to do it.
And yeah, as an investor, I would think about the risk and opportunity approach and take the risk, provided there are lots of opportunity beyond that. And so for that, we have to understand what's the need for the opportunities, and then we'll provide the solution, I assume.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you, everyone, and also for the active participation from the audience. Thank you, the speakers, and yeah, let's go ahead with the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Thank you very much to all the speakers. And now it's time to welcome our colleague Sanjay Vijendran, who is going to explain to us what is Solaris.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sanjay Vijendran. I work at ESA at our STEX facility in the Netherlands in the Exploration Directorate. But I'm not here to talk to you about science and exploration today. I'm here to talk to you about clean energy from space. So first of all, I want to thank my colleague Donatella and the Commercialization Directorate for inviting me to give you this talk today on a topic which I suspect some or many of you may not have heard about before, and I hope this the short inspirational talk will both raise your awareness and give you a bit of a boost for the end of the day. So let's move forward. So the talk is about energy from space, otherwise known as space-based solar power, and you've heard a lot today about solutions that space can bring using data to help with the energy transition. I want to raise your awareness about how space can be utilized to tackle the problem head on, directly deliver the clean energy that we need from space in a scalable way into the future. So the title is, How Can We Use Space to Accelerate Decarbonization? So I'm going to start with an inspirational video in this talk, just a 3-minute video to give you a little nice overview of what the topic's about, and then I'll talk a little bit more in detail about that. So.
The sun, the source of energy for life on Earth. Stored in fossil fuels, the sun's energy has powered modern civilization for over 200 years. But the use of fossil fuels has resulted in dangerous global warming and a changing climate, to the extent that the United Nations and the European Union have declared a climate emergency. Transitioning to clean energy is an urgent imperative, and Europe is committed to achieving net zero emissions by the year 2050. But this will be extremely difficult if we rely only on existing renewable and low-carbon energy solutions, as intermittency of supply, pressures on land use, scalability and toxic waste limit how quickly and effectively existing energy sources can be rolled out. The European Space Agency has been investigating a new solution that could overcome all these problems. Solar power delivered wirelessly from space to Earth. Europe has the technology lead in building and launching communication satellites. This deep know-how can be built upon to develop and scale up solar power satellites. Huge orbiting solar farms, built up of many similar parts that will be mass-produced, launched into space on low-cost, reusable launchers, and assembled together in orbit using advanced robotic techniques. Once completed, these satellites will collect the full power of the sun's energy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and beam it wirelessly down to Earth to receiver stations, which will turn it back into electricity and deliver it to the grid. Space-based solar power is thus a continuously available, inexhaustible, sustainable and scalable source of energy that could help Europe meet its climate and energy security goals. This is not science fiction. The fundamental technologies are understood and are already being demonstrated on Earth and in space today. However, there are still many engineering and policy challenges that would need to be overcome to make this ultimate energy source a reality as early as the next decade. Other nations are already working on realizing space-based solar power. If Europe also wants to benefit from this game-changing capability, accelerated investments in research and development would need to start now to determine if space-based solar power can indeed offer another source of affordable and abundant energy for our green future. And in doing so, launch a new European space energy industry that would provide enormous opportunities for innovation and economic growth in space and on Earth.
So we heard in the first talk this morning by the colleague from the International Energy Agency about the challenge of getting to net zero, a decarbonized world in the time that we have, and also the solutions that are on the table today in terms of clean energy sources and low carbon sources, some of which are shown here on the slide that we are all familiar with. But while all of these have their benefits, advantages, they also have their disadvantages and constraints depending on the geography, depending on the political situation, depending on the availability of resource. They're all, even as a mix, constrained in a way that makes it extremely challenging in order to reach our goals of expanding renewables and low carbon sources to the levels that they need in the time that we have it. So acknowledging that this challenge is huge, the question is there something else that we can add to the mix in the future? Because it is obviously going to be a mix. There is no silver bullet amongst these energy sources that is going to be the one solution. Is there something that space can offer to help make that transition quicker, less painful, more affordable than otherwise? And we think the answer is yes. So space-based solar power, essentially delivering solar energy from space to Earth, is a concept that has existed for more than 50 years. It's not a new idea. It's been studied by space agencies all around the world, including ESA over the last decades. Time and again, it's always been an idea, a fantastic idea, ahead of its time. Too early to be economically viable. Not so much a question of technical feasibility, because the basic technologies to be able to do this and the fundamental physics are well known, but it's always been too expensive to be a commercially viable thing to do. Now, what has changed in the last 10 years in the space industry is that the cost of doing something like space-based solar power, putting huge solar farms in space, has fallen dramatically. And this is what has motivated the huge interest around the world now, including in Europe, to explore in an urgent way whether we can make this possible in the next decade to help with decarbonization for our net zero goals. So what are the main benefits of space-based solar power shown on the slide, on the bottom of the slide? It's solar energy. It's a different type of solar where your panel's not somewhere on Earth, but up in space. And why would you want to do that? Because it gives you this set of enviable characteristics all rolled up into one energy source. It's green. It's 24/7. It can be affordable, scalable to provide much of the world's energy needs into the future. It's fully reliable, predictable, it's secure energy, and it's available to everyone on the planet, independent of your geography. So this set of characteristics, all in a single source, is what makes this energy source unique. In fact, one thing that's not listed here is its ability to be a transmission system as well as a generation system, because the power can be beamed when and where it's needed in a way that no other energy source can do, as I'll describe a bit later. So how would this look like? How would you do this? So conceptually, it's fairly simple. There's 5 steps to it. You collect sunlight in space with solar panels, basically putting your solar farm up in space instead of in the countryside, convert that to electricity, and then you have to get that electricity down to the Earth. So this is where the interesting part comes. How do we get that down? Obviously not with a cable, but we use a concept called wireless power transmission. Now, this is not just theoretical physics. This has been demonstrated time and again on Earth over the last decades at low power levels and short distances, but of course needs to be scaled up in a massive way to make it work here. So we convert that electricity into radio waves, and we send those radio waves down in a focused, low intensity and safe beam down to a receiver in the countryside in locations around the Earth, convert those radio waves back to electricity and feed that into the grid. In fact, the physics of every step along the way is exactly what happens in every telecommunications satellite today and has been happening over the last 60 years. It's just the big challenge here is that it has to be done at a completely different scale. We're not talking about delivering kilowatts or tens of kilowatts for the Earth. To make this meaningful, it needs to deliver hundreds of megawatts or gigawatts, as you know, to be a substitute for a fossil fuel power plant or a nuclear power plant. So that's the challenge here. Can we engineer this at the scale that's required to be able to send that power efficiently and safely down to the Earth for use on the ground? So that's on the space side. On the ground side, what would this look like? You'd need to have a large receiver in the countryside, onshore or offshore, which would receive these radio frequencies and then convert it back to electricity. This is much simpler than solar panels. They're more like little antennas like you have in your mobile phones, but we need to have billions of them spread out on a wire mesh to receive these radio frequency waves from space. But the interesting thing, as you can see from this plot, is that the energy density that we can get through space-based solar power is much higher than terrestrial solar or wind. So we can produce, for example, in this plot for a 2 gigawatt into the grid continuous baseload system, it would take something like 75 square kilometers of area of receiver on the ground in order to produce that power. So that's around 30 or so watts per square meter, 24/7 into the grid. This is a number of factors higher than your average terrestrial solar production in a solar farm in Europe, and much, much higher than wind. And this example is just showing off the coast in Denmark, an existing wind farm that produces for twice the amount of land, far less energy, because that is just a peak capacity that a wind farm produces, and it's not 24/7. So saving land is part of what space-based solar power can also offer compared to intermittent solar and wind. And this is an example of what a receiver might look like. As I said, it's kind of wire mesh, and this allows you to have a dual use of the land for other purposes underneath the mesh, for example, for agriculture or even terrestrial solar. Now, another way to get energy down from space, actually a simpler way that we've been looking at in one of our studies recently, is to reflect natural sunlight down onto existing terrestrial solar farms. And we can do this with fairly lightweight, but still large structures in space, essentially putting a set of mirrors in space and reflect sunlight down onto terrestrial solar farms. Now, why would you want to do this? Because by using space assets in orbit, you can send energy down to your solar farms at different times of the day than nature provides, particularly at dawn and dusk when our usage is quite high, electricity prices are peaking because solar is not available, and your solar farms have already been invested in by all the solar farm developers. Here you can become a light, you can sell light to solar farms existing on the ground who can then generate revenue when they otherwise cannot. So we see this as a complementary way for getting energy down from space, simpler and probably quicker to implement than the radio frequency method I mentioned before, but with this disadvantage that it would be blocked by clouds in areas of the world where there's a lot of cloud cover, just like natural sunlight. Here's a little video of how this might look. So we're talking about kilometer scale lightweight structures in space, basically a thin membrane with a little bit of aluminum to make it into a mirror and a lightweight truss. And you need a train of these in low Earth orbit, which would reflect sunlight as it passes over a solar farm on the ground that can receive that. And each set of mirrors would only be over the horizon for a short time in a low orbit. So we'd be having a large number of mirrors simultaneously pointing at the same solar farm to achieve the intensity that's required, and a long train in order to have a significant duration, for example, up to a couple of hours in the morning and a couple of hours in the evening of midday level sunlight. We're talking 1,000 watts per square meter can be achieved if you have enough of these mirrors in orbit. So if you did have such a system, our studies have shown that you can produce up to 60% more yield from infrastructure that's on the ground without any change to that infrastructure itself, because all you're doing is that you're providing light when it isn't otherwise available. So you'll be thinking, space is expensive, how much is this all going to cost? Well, our studies have shown that with the falling launch costs that we're seeing happening around the world now, and we'll soon see how launch costs will fall by another order of magnitude with the development of fully reusable heavy lift launches, plus the falling costs of manufacturing spacecraft in large numbers through LEO constellations that we're seeing nowadays with Starlink and OneWeb. We think we can produce the first solar power plants at a price producing so much energy that it reaches levelized costs of electricity that are similar to conventional sources. So initially, similar to nuclear, and then in the long term, as this falls, just like it has with solar and wind, as we scale up solar power plants in orbit, this could reach similar levels of LCOE as terrestrial renewables, so around 50 euros per megawatt hour. Now, but this is 24/7 reliable energy, giving you base load without storage or dispatchable power source. So this is high value energy compared to intermittent wind and renewables. So this is the prospect that is offered by space-based solar power in the longer term. So is it safe? That's a question that always comes up, of course. And yes, it can be designed to be safe. So all of our designs are including low intensity radio waves in order to be compatible with planes and satellites, birds, and any living things that might pass through the beam, but yet sufficient in order to get a good amount of electricity for the land that it's used. And the wavelengths that we use are similar to Wi-Fi and satellite communications today. So these are known to be non-ionizing. Now, because of the short time, I can't go into all of the many challenges and risks that there are. Of course, there's huge technological challenges with building such large structures in space and controlling and operating them. But all of the fundamental technologies that we would use are existing today that do need to be advanced and put together as a full system. And then there's, of course, legal challenges, regulatory challenges, social challenges, public acceptance of having receivers in the countryside, and environmental and safety as well. But despite 40, 50 years of study all across the world, there have been no showstoppers identified by anyone. And right now, a number of countries around the world are already working on this. The US, China, and Japan are the biggest players. And some of them have roadmaps to put gigawatt-scale power plants into orbit as well, and are already doing demonstrators from space, beaming power down to the ground, like a demonstration done by Caltech last year. So Europe is not yet properly on this map, and this is why at the end of 2022, ESA started the Solaris initiative, which is an R&D initiative for 3 years to get enough good data on the feasibility and the costs and the risks of space-based solar power in order to be able to make a decision in Europe about whether or not we should go ahead with full-scale development of this technology in our path towards decarbonization. So Solaris is about doing R&D activities on technology, doing concepts on studies, as well as looking at the environmental and research aspects of safety and environment as well, environmental effects of this technology on the Earth. And a key part of that is the stakeholder engagement, the raising of awareness, especially in the energy sector, which is why I'm here today and keen to raise your awareness, because this is something that the energy sector is ultimately the customer of this technology, not the space sector for energy delivery to the Earth. But they are still quite unaware of the potential of this and what it can offer to helping accelerate decarbonization, getting over some of those big constraints with intermittent renewables, like the need for storage and grid upgrades and all of that. So this is a very important aspect of what we're doing in Solaris, is just getting the message out that this could be available if the world were to invest in it, and it isn't doing so right now. Now, what would a notional roadmap look like? Solaris is intended to go up till the end of next year, at the end of the, where there's another ESA ministerial, and the original plan was to be able to have enough information to make a proposal on going forward or not with a full development program. If we did go forward with a program, we think we can, with a three-step approach, reach gigawatt scale space-based solar power systems by the end of the 2030s, with already a commercially viable pilot system in the mid-2030s. That's the nominal roadmap, but it could be further accelerated if there was political will and a big push to do this in a kind of moonshot approach. So, coming to the end, the take-home messages are, the challenges are great, as you know, to get to net zero, and the world is looking at all sorts of solutions to help accelerate that. And our studies have shown that space-based solar power could be one of the additional clean energy sources in the future that can help get us more quickly to net zero. And even beyond that, beyond 2050, we still have the need for expanding clean energy to provide what the rest of the world needs that isn't using large amounts of energy today, particularly in the developing countries. And it would allow actually closing down fossil fuel plants, something which current renewables have had this difficulty with doing, despite the huge growth of renewables around the world in the last 2 decades. So there's plenty of challenges ahead. There needs to be a huge amount of R&D. Some of that is happening now, but a lot more needs to be done because the efforts are quite minimal considering the potential. Time is short, and we need to act now. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sanjay. I don't think we have the time for question and answers, so I will go straight to the wrap-up if that's okay. But as mentioned, Sanjay and everyone will be on the boat tonight if anyone wants to interact. Thank you for today's, for all the participants today, for all the speakers. It's very nice to see the organization actually come together in a great event. I just wanted to remind you that tonight we have the shuttle that goes to the boat at 6 p.m. So it will be on the ground floor. So you have about half an hour for networking before getting on the shuttle. Or you can also meet us directly on this address. That is the address where the boat will be departing at 7 p.m. So your choice, you can take the shuttle or you can meet us directly at the boat. Tomorrow we're starting the sessions at 9 a.m. So we await for your arrivals before that. Thank you very much.